One thing to criticize the media for being biased, but can we criticize them for funding terror?
Oh,
In this story from Deseret, Utah activist in Capitol riot sold his video to CNN and NBC for $35,000 each.
That's a lot
This
of money.
guy is charged with storming the Capitol, but he's a leftist. So CNN gave him 35 grand, providing material support to a guy who runs a group, or who started a group called Insurgents USA, and was a frequent activist attending BLM and Antifa protests, and then later denied being involved at all. Sorry, bro. But what I find funny is you can be a moderately liberal individual. You go as a journalist, you go and interview, say, the Proud Boys, and then the media says that proves you're far right. You can actually start a leftist insurgent organization, go to BLM rallies, go to Antifa rallies, and then as soon as they report on the negative things you did, you say, oh, actually, I'm not involved. They go, oh, okay, we'll take your word for it. There you go. But more to the point, CNN claimed over and over and over again what happened there was a terror attack in the Capitol. Yet they were the ones immediately after it happened who provided $35,000 to one of these guys. Who
was cheering it on during one of the
telling
most
people to
scariest
burn it
moments
down.
As a woman got shot in the whole melee that he was a part of creating.
And he was screaming like, she's dead, she's dead.
And $35,000. I mean, I covered a lot of crazy protest footage, and I have some of the most wildest footage. I had news organizations come to me, try to offer my stuff. $35,000 is an absurd number, in my opinion.
Do you know what he sold?
Yeah, the shooting video.
Yeah, it was the video of the woman who lost her life. Jeez. So he had the exclusive footage, and he got $70,000 for it. There's got to be some kind of criminal statute for this, right? This was evidence obtained in the commission of a crime. This was an individual who was breaking the law and filming himself breaking the law. And CNN rushed at full speed, not only to put the guy on air, they put him on air and claimed he was an activist. They bought the footage from him.
Yeah, I think usually if criminals are profitable, you just kind of
How much did they pay Muhammad? How much did they pay Muhammad Atta for his like in-flight footage on 9/11? I'm joking, but they would have done that probably. They would have paid for that. Don't you think?
I don't think so. I think the problem is that politics flows one direction. That even though this guy is being charged with several crimes, and he recently got new charges added, the news outlets don't care about you or me or anyone who's listening to this show. They don't care. They know who their audience is, and they're feeding the beast.
It's power, man. Operation Paperclip. They took a bunch of Nazi scientists that were doing what we would have considered illegal, funding the enemy.
We literally considered it illegal.
And then we just waived their crimes and then made them American citizens and paid them a bunch of money because we liked what they were doing.
And we all know what that resulted in. That mad scientist guy puts his brain in the computer and then takes over S.H.I.E.L.D. and then Hydra, is...
this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fallout New Vegas.
No, that's the Winter Soldier, Captain America.
It makes me want to just think for a second. Trump, he said the quiet part out loud when he talked about us doing bad things, right? Biden just admits that there is no universal liberalism. There is no universal human rights. There's only moral relativism.
There's only profit, power, and the agenda of those who have it.
Are we just finally acknowledging that maybe this whole American story that we built up, this whole myth about us being the good guys and doing the right thing all the time, it's just a bunch of crap?
But we've always known that. Like, this is the country where we learn history is written by the victors. This is the country where you are allowed to burn the American flag, for better or for worse. Even back in the day when it was way more controversial and people would try and cancel you over it, you can still do it. You can't do that in China in any capacity. They'll just lock you in your home, weld your door shut, and then you die. We look. There's that famous sketch where the two guys, was it Hamish and Andy? I think, I'm not sure, and they're dressed like Nazis, and they're like, their symbol is the skull and crossbones, and the guy's like, "Are we the baddies? Yeah. Like, we have a skull and crossbones." They were. America does bad things. But if you believe in the world of superheroes who are perfect and can do no wrong, well, then I got a comic book to sell you, because that's just not the real world. But good guys have flaws. The United States has serious flaws. But I think it's true that we are and have been the good guys, and there have been a lot of really messed up things America has done. And America has been exploited by a lot of special interests and evil people. But for the most part, we have been. This is one of the best countries to have ever existed, if not the best, in terms of civil rights for all people. The rights, I'll tell you something real crazy, man. I have to be careful when I go to certain countries. People in this country, they think it's funny when I mention that I'm mixed race, but they don't understand that That's very dangerous in a lot of countries in the world. The views held about being mixed are extremely ethnocentric, and it's like, that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. I went to Korea, for instance, and I had a lot of people say, oh man, wow, yeah, no, you shouldn't, like, that's like not okay. You know what I mean? This country is amazing. We've not always been perfect, but we have moved towards bettering everything as we've gone, moved forward. And even today, it's this country has done so well to protect rights that we actually have a problem of people exploiting our desire to do good. Our goodwill is being exploited by critical race theorists who are trying to destroy this country and who hate it.
It seems like the age of decadence, like where all this infighting, like it makes me think of the Romans at the end of the Roman Empire.
Yep.
And has there ever been an empire that wasn't ultimately invaded by militant conquerors and then transfixed, changed? Has there ever been one? Has there ever been an empire that peacefully became a new country?
250 years. Well, yeah. Well, I don't know about peacefully, but
I don't
collapse
either.
happens.
Yeah, it's either collapse and violent takeover. That's like the history of all countries and empires.
That's just the history of power, dude.
Yeah.
So is that what we're destined for? Is a Chinese military takeover of this country?
Well, yes, but not military.
Yes.
Fifth generational warfare.
I'm talking about military takeover.
might have already
violent.
happened.
It doesn't need to be military.
It doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be bullets. It doesn't have to be bombs. It's information. It's data. Data is the new oil.
Seized out of their house in the middle of the night by Chinese Communist
censored,
Party.
Censored, taken offline, making sure you can't use banks online. That's one way that they could
Ostracized.
do
No,
it.
starve.
Sending misdemeanor offenders for calling the cops by accident on the wrong guy to re-education camps is a sign of victory. Now, I'm glad we sort of took the bait here on my sort of Socratic asking this question about is America everything we remember it to be. I think what we're really observing here is that it is one thing to be inside and to be an American in America. It is another thing to be on the outside and not be an American vis-a-vis American power in the world, right? And the way that we conduct ourselves overseas and the way that we try to push our universal liberalism, moral rights, or human rights on everybody else over their objections, right? And at the same time as like preserving all of our stuff at home and saying this can't be corrupted in any way. It presents a hypocrisy that people resent us around the world. There's no question about that. But do I want to live anywhere else where I'm actually not the king? No. The only place I want to live anywhere else other than here is someplace where I'm actually the sovereign. That's my next, that's my next project.
Well, the thing that makes America special is the First and Second Amendment, something that is also in grave danger from being taken away from us in one way or another. Digitally, online, the information communication highways are taken over by special interests, and they're limiting people's speech. The Second Amendment also is in grave danger as well. There's already a lot of limitations, but let's be honest here. Comparatively around the world, not a lot of people have the First and Second Amendment. Now, as you said, Jack, the military-industrial complex has hijacked American foreign policy, and the amount of human suffering it has caused all around the world, oh boy, there need to be a realization to this and an understanding of this, because the consequences are far greater than what a lot of naive people in the United States could even understand. So you have to understand, you have to take these two. Nothing's perfect. We only could strive to be better by understanding it and having an honest discussion about it, which we're trying to do here.
We have to preserve. I'm sorry to interrupt your thought flow.
I hadn't
I'm
even
coming
spoken
to you next,
yet.
Jackie.
I mean, it's like you got a neighbor next door who's like at home, everything's beautiful in their house, and all the kids are successful, and they got all the money in the world, and it's totally free and loving and kind inside their house. And then they're the biggest jerks you ever met in your neighborhood, and they're killing everybody who doesn't think the way that they do. That is a dichotomy that is really hard to square. That is a contradiction. Our actions collectively as a nation represented on the world stage don't necessarily jive up with our theories on and our ideas of who we are at home.
This is why I think we got to vehemently protect the Constitution, because there could come a day when the U.S. government is so hands-off and disregarded of the Constitution that they allow extradition of American citizens to China for crap talk in the Chinese government.
What they've already done is allow the Constitution to be subordinated to terms of service.
Right.
Corporate terms of service now supersede the Constitution.
Yeah.
I got a question, though. In Chicago, for the longest time growing up, you couldn't have guns. Basically, period. You just couldn't have them. And then there was some big Supreme Court ruling, and then a bunch of these, Chicago Democrats were freaking out because Supreme Court was like, yo, you can't ban people from having guns. So all of a sudden, businesses started putting signs all over their door, all over the stickers on their doors. No weapons allowed in this business. No weapons allowed in this business. So now you can have a weapon, but if you're walking around with it, you're not going to be able to go into any buildings. Not legally, I guess they could kick you out. I'm curious about like private roads. Could someone who owns a toll road, private road, say you can't bring weapons on this road? We'll kick you off. We'll ban you from using it. Just real quick, the reason I bring this up is if we're moving in a direction where our speech is now subjected to terms of service and we don't use the public space anymore, will there eventually be a time when other elements that are protected by the Constitution go private and then we no longer have those rights? Courts, policing, etc.
Well, it's happening right now with the way that we talk to each other. Free speech in the same way. The terms of service are superseding the Constitution. They're abridging your rights, First Amendment rights. And the government seems very happy to allow that to happen. As a matter of fact, don't you think that the folks on the left in power in the United States government, they look to this censorship that is taking place, these new terms of service that supersede the Constitution? They're actually getting the work done that they wish that they could accomplish through the government. They are silencing their political opposition. They silenced the most powerful man in the world, the president of the United States. They banned him while he was in office, which is just what the left wish could happen. So the people who are in power, who are guardians and defenders, who have taken oaths to defend the Constitution, gleefully allow these corporations to run amok and establish terms of service which supersede the Constitution.
Let's talk about what happens when.
Let me say this real quick. This is like a visceral misnomer of human rights. To allow a corporation to violate your rights because you don't want to violate their rights is like saying you're going to allow the Chinese government to take you and fly you to China to put you in a Chinese prison because you're not going to violate their right to do that. We have a government to protect our rights. That's why it's in place. My rights, your rights, our rights.
So here's
not corporate rights. Those aren't even people.
No, that's not what the Supreme Court said.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you